Let's talk a little bit about microphones. Microphones convert acoustic energy into an electrical signal. The topic of microphones is complex, but for this course, we're going to focus in on a few basic types of microphones. The two most common types of microphones are dynamic and condenser. Dynamic microphones are highly dependable, rugged, and reliable. Dynamic microphones are fairly simple in construction. In fact, they work much the same way a loudspeaker does, only in reverse. There is a diaphragm that is attached to a small coil of wire. The coil is positioned in the field of a permanent magnet. When the sound waves move the diaphragm, it also moves the coil and produces a small electrical current. And this is the signal of the microphone. It is because of this construction that they are common on stages where ruggedness is important. Although dynamic microphones are not super accurate, modern dynamic microphones sound fantastic and are widely used in recording and live productions. Condenser microphones are different from dynamic microphones for a few reasons. The diaphragm element, which is the component that moves when it gets excited with sound, is much lighter compared to a dynamic microphone. Because the element is lighter, it can respond much faster to vibrations and is much more accurate than a dynamic microphone. Condenser microphones also contain electronics to make them function. Because of the more delicate construction and electronics, condensers are not quite as rugged or durable as dynamic microphones. To make these electronics function, all condenser microphones need power. Some condensers use a battery, but more often they use something called phantom power. No, not that phantom. Phantom power, in the context of professional audio equipment, is a method of transmitting power through microphone cables to operate the active electronic circuitry. All microphones have a polar pattern that indicates how sensitive the microphone is to the sound coming from different directions. You can think about this like a flashlight in a dark room. Wherever the light is emitting is where the microphone is most sensitive to sound. An omnidirectional pattern responds to sounds in nearly all directions. A cardioid pattern looks like a fat heart and rejects sound from directly behind the microphone element. Supercardioid and hypercardioid have slightly narrower patterns in the front, but start to accept sounds coming from the rear of the microphone. These microphones reject sound from a rear angle. A shotgun microphone has a pattern that is very narrow in front and has a narrow response from the rear, but does a good job of rejecting sounds from the sides. Let's take a look at some different microphones and see how they respond to sound coming from different directions. All right, for this example, I'm going to try and show you what the directionality or the polar patterns might sound like on some of these different microphones. This is a Shure SM58 microphone. It's a dynamic microphone with a cardioid pickup pattern. We're going to test this by holding it up to the speaker and rotating it so we get sound on axis where the microphone is pointing directly at the sound source and off axis where the microphone is pointing away. Now as I rotate the microphone around, you should hear some of the frequencies kind of fall off. So maybe the higher frequencies will roll off as it gets turned away from the microphone, and the volume should vary as it's rotated around as well. This should reject sound fairly well from directly behind the microphone, but let's check it out. All right, up next we have a Behringer ECM 8000. This is a measurement microphone, but it can also be used in recording as well. It's got a very small diaphragm and it's a condenser microphone. Now this microphone is an omnidirectional microphone, so it should pick up sound fairly well from all around. Let's check it out. right, this is another Shure microphone. This is a Beta 57A. Now this is a hypercardioid microphone, so it accepts sounds mostly from the front. It probably has a small little node where it will accept sounds from the rear, but most of the rejection happens from about a 60-degree angle along this axis, in like this. So let's check it out and see how it sounds. All right, this ridiculous looking contraption is a shotgun microphone on a shock mount with a boom pole attached. The microphone is actually just this cylindrical black object here, and the rest of it is the apparatus to hold it for video productions, things of that nature. Now this is a Sennheiser microphone. I believe the model is an ME66, and because it's a shotgun, most of the sound is going to come from directly in front of the microphone. It's going to reject sounds extremely well from the sides, and it may pick up sound just a little bit from behind the microphone. I'm going to use the boom pole here to manipulate it because this is a very large microphone. Let's see what it sounds like. Knowing about the polar pattern in a microphone is important because it will help you decide if the microphone is appropriate for what you are trying to record. Directionality in a microphone can be a good way to focus in on the sound source, but directionality also causes proximity effect. The proximity effect in audio is an increase in bass or low frequency response when a sound source is close to a microphone. This is good to know because it can help with some sound sources and make other sound sources a nightmare to control. For instance, proximity effect can be good to beef up a voice, but if the singer or speaker is varying the distance from the microphone, the bass response will be all over the place. The only microphones that do not exhibit proximity effect are omnidirectional microphones. Here's a quick demonstration about proximity effect. I will start this test with this large diaphragm condenser microphone with a cardioid pickup pattern, and then do the same test with an omnidirectional microphone. I will start a few feet back, read a line, step closer, and read it again. Listen to how the bass will shoot up as I get right up on top of the microphone, and then compare that with the omnidirectional microphone. You may be wondering what this black circular thing is here. This is called a pop screen or a pop filter, and that's to protect the microphone and your recording from plosive consonants like P's and B's, things that have air that shoots out of your mouth when you say them. This large screen helps dissipate that and really helps with a smooth sounding recording. I love peanut butter and jelly. 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 Now we'll try the same test with an omnidirectional microphone. I love peanut butter and jelly. 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 Hopefully you have just heard that as I got closer to the microphone, the bass in my voice increased substantially. This can be a great way to beef up vocals or drums or another instrument that you're recording. But like I said before, it can also present a lot of problems if perhaps you're recording something that already has a lot of low frequency information in it, or you're using a microphone that's extra sensitive to bass or low frequencies. Something you definitely need to keep in mind when you're using directional microphones, be it condenser or dynamic or whatever. Proximity effect can help or hurt your recordings.